There are not many examples of sculpture from the first Eastern Baltic civilizations. We know of the creation of sculptures in the Baltic region as early as the Mesolithic period by cutting, carving, chiseling and polishing bone, horn, stone, wood and amber. The most ancient examples of art from amber portray bears, boars and horses. A collection of sculptures of moose heads was found in a cemetery on Elnu or Elk Island. Perhaps the most impressive portrayal of a moose head from the Mesolithic period was found in this cemetery in the double grave of two men. The sculpture was very well preserved, and it is possible to distinguish even the most minute details. Moose figurines make up perhaps the biggest part of zoomorphic art. 3 moose sculptures were even found in the Neolithic complex of the Shventoy settlements. One of them, a 44-centimeter long sculpture, is noticeably different. An artist who knew the animal's anatomy particularly well created it. Characteristic details giving the sculpture some liveliness were rendered proportionally. All the anatomic characteristics typical to moose, the angular snout, large nostrils, protruding lips and teeth with a big gap instead of canine teeth typical among herbivores, were emphasized. A groove was carved to form almond-shaped eyes, and straight carved cuts formed the teeth. The entire surface of the sculpture is thoroughly polished, and tiny crisscrossing lines cover the already polished surface on the bridge of the nose and in the area of the ear. Handles of wooden scoops, tools and sometimes bone daggers were usually decorated with images of birds. Wooden scoops with the heads of birds were found in the Shventoy settlement. Small figures of reptiles, vipers, grass snakes made up a separate class of sculptures. The oldest ones date back to the Mesolithic period. 2 curvy figurines carved out of a tubular piece of bone reminiscent of grass snakes or vipers were found in the cemetery of Elnu Island. The most expressive and monumental figure of a grass snake or viper was found in the Tervala region of Estonia. In the Abura settlement of the late Mesolithic period, 3 grass snake figurines were found. A fragment of one viper figurine, made of bone, was also found in the Cretuana settlement of the ancient Bronze Age. Flat profile images and pendants with holes drilled through them often have clear silhouettes of birds, boars and bears. 2 expressive carved pendants were found in the Cretuana settlement. A boar figure on which a huge head with open jaws is emphasized, and an amber figurine of a squatting bear found in the Tamula settlement of the late Neolithic period are also very interesting. A figure found in the Cretuana settlement of an animal that is hard to identify but is most likely a bison is interesting as well. Art accompanied complicated hunting magic of the Mesolithic period. The most common scene from that period was quite often a hunter with his arms raised, holding a bow and arrow or an axe, and sometimes holding a tool similar to a spear in one hand. Full-body human images of the Mesolithic period are so far known only from the eastern border of the Baltics. 5 figurines were found on the riverside of the Pärnu River in the Mesolithic cemetery of Elnu Island and on the shore of Onega Lake in Besovnos camp. Currently, 4 pillar-shaped sculptures are known of from the territory in which the old Proto-Baltic tribes lived. A pillar-shaped sculpture from the Shventoy peatbog settlement is magnificent. It seems that it must have stood directly on the bank of the river. The sculpture was made from a small straight log of black alder, into the upper part of which a human face was carved, and the lower part of which was nicely sharpened. The entire log was 195 centimeters tall and 10 centimeters thick. The Stone Age sculptor covered only 32 centimeters of the length with silver, and in that place, after peeling off the bark, he carved a head and part of a chest. We can assume that, at least at the beginning of the Neolithic period, in places that had a lot of fish, cult figures with human heads, called the Great Master Fathers, were erected. Full-body Neolithic human sculptures are different from those of the Mesolithic period in the way the face was created. The portrayal is close to the monumental wooden figurines, and in a way testifies to the fact that this canon of portrayal was developed only in the Neolithic period in the eastern Baltic regions. The earliest of them are amber figurines from Juodkrantė and stone figurines from the Zveinieko cemetery and from Siasko in the southern part of Onega Lake. All amber figurines have 2, 4, 5 or even 6 little holes, from which we can guess that they were worn on a string or were most likely separate parts of a necklace. The style of portraying the human figure in sculptures created in the period from 2500 to 1600 BC is completely different. a male form was most often portrayed. A sculpture of a male from Abora made from horn is probably the best example of such portrayal. The artist understood the main proportions of the male body and portrayed the man as if he was alive. It was done according to the same requirements for portraying the human figure that were later formulated by the Greeks. However, the face was depicted quite sketchily, with only light indentations marking the place of the face and the mouth. Occasionally portrayals of women are found as well. A figurine of a woman placed in a child's grave in the Zvejnieko cemetery probably expresses an image of a mother. In the Abora settlement, another figurine, whose wide and round hips show that it is a figure of a woman, was found. Amulets depicting the human head, made of bone, amber and clay, make up the largest group of anthropomorphic figurines from the eastern Baltic region. At some point, they were part of necklaces. Most often the human face is portrayed from the front. Facial features are created by embossing or simply by drilling little holes in corresponding places. Algirdas Girininkas discovered many human face amulets from the Neolithic settlement of Kretuonas. All pendants and amulets are made of bone. Some of them are closer to the form of a mask, having eye sockets cut through them and nose, mouth, beard and facial characteristics carved on them. The others are made of even thicker types of bone, with facial features inscribed by a gouge, emphasizing the nose and the mouth by embossing, and the lines of the eye and eyebrow by cutting lines. Such amulets are closer to sculptures. Ingenious artists also made amulets that had two ends. For such amulets, eyes were drilled in the middle of the figurine. From one end you could see an old man with a beard and moustache, and from the other end you could see the face of a young man or a woman. Human images on surfaces of pottery from the Neolithic period have also been discovered. Bas-relief figures of people on the surface of a pot from the Middle Neolithic Šventosios settlement are distinguished by their unique plastic arts look. An embossed line of the same width expresses the waist, arms and legs. A larger quantity of clay added to the area of the shoulders might represent an inclined head. The people of the Pamariu culture left an interesting human figurine in a large ritual pot in Nida. Its arms are stretched out to the sides with the palms of the hands facing forwards and fingers spread. Another fragment of a very expressive figure with four-fingered hands raised to the sides was also found in Nida. Human poses on clay pots invoke a lot of thought. It is said that arms stretched out to the sides, and especially raised arms, is an iconic symbol that came from the old European farmer culture. These gestures can mean both making a sacrifice and devotion to God when people are portrayed, as well as blessing when gods and spirits are portrayed. The fact that such figurines are found on some pots allow us to make a prediction that they have something in common with the contents of the pots. Most probably such dishes were used when making sacrifices. Researchers believe that figurines with four-fingered hands signified evil spirits and figurines with three-fingered hands signified gods or good spirits. It may be that such figurines on Nida's ritual pots do not portray ancient Baltic farmers asking for rain, but rather field or harvest spirits, mediators between heaven and people, raising their arms and blessing farmlands.